Okay, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're gonna see how this goes. If I don't like it, I'm probably gonna do it in the morning when I'm fully woke, awake, and because I'm really getting ready for bed. This is like something, but I really did want to talk about this, even though I've already talked about it on the podcast. Um, Watching part two of this, I was like, I think I've got my fully invested thoughts in there. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Danae Jackson, Derrick Jaxn's ex. So, I think most of y'all know about the debacle, that him cheating on his wife and the whole them getting divorced and like the whole fiasco and everything that Derrick Jaxn done put himself and his wife through. Now let me just say this: I've never been a big Derrick Jaxn fan. I always thought he pandered to women, and it's not that I don't hate black women or any of that, but I think a lot of women get this misconstrued because a lot of men does say, yeah, he panders to women. It's like it's okay to love black women. It's okay to like treat black. In my opinion, it's okay to love black women. It's okay to treat them like queens. I do, especially the ones that deserve the moniker as queens. I will put. I will put. I've never pandered, but there's times where I've done put some women on a pedestal. I will. I can admit to saying that, but I've never pandered, and like you could tell when someone's really pandering, and Derrick Jaxn has always been like that. It's just, and like a lot of men picked it up with his messages, and a lot, which turned a lot of dudes off, and because, like I said, we like even if some of his stuff was correct, you could tell like some like you could tell it was really pandered to black women and all that, and it worked. And look, don't get me wrong, he's a handsome brother, in shape, and like niggas waves on swim and all that. And like I would expect, and I said this, I didn't know he was married until like you seen a picture of his wife, and then it's just like years later. So I've always thought, I said, yo, this man must have bitches falling over him. And I was right, according to Danae Jackson. Now, when you first see Danae Jackson, and most people, the first time you saw her was, in that apology video with him and his wife, and, she just had this deadpan look in her eyes while Derrick Jaxn. And I'm not going to lie to you. When you watch that video again, like she looks dead in the eyes. Like I don't, but and Derrick Jaxn looks like he was more or less worried about saving his brand instead of saving his marriage. Because I remember watching it. There was plenty of times where he was trying to promote his books and his seminars, and instead of just like, even though he quote unquote took accountability, you could tell he was there trying to sell something, and it just, even though it just looked fake to me. I'm just be real. Even though he did apologize and he took all that felt fake, like he wasn't really sorry. And Gone did, he's always gave you like narcissistic vibes, like he's really fully into himself and shit. And I kind of was am right. According to now, Danae Jackson, like I said, um, Danae Jackson, I think a lot of people saw her crazy because she's out there cursing people out in the name of Jesus, with the and then putting curses on there, which I will get to that part when I do. I think a lot of people, including myself, felt sorry for her because even through all that craziness, I could tell like she really, really was riding hard for this nigga. Like I like even before the interview, I was like, this woman looked like she rode so hard for a man that she will curse everybody out just to save the sanctity of her marriage. And anybody that was going against the Team Jackson, and she was cursing you out in the name of Jesus, and like, well, she was like, oh, it's in Psalms. Now, watching this interview, you can tell you can tell she's like really healed. And I'm honestly, two things, and I'm gonna say this from a physical standpoint, she looks very gorgeous. And even then, like during the pilot video and like the whole bonnet thing, I was just like, there's a cute girl under that, but there's just like I just wish you see more of that. I always thought she was a pretty woman too. It's just like I can see why he married her, but even then, like the the picture of them at the wedding, you could tell she was a little thicker, and then she like lost the weight and all that stuff. I always thought that she was an attractive woman, even throughout the bonnet and the craziness. But I might just like a little crazy. Maybe that's just me. With that being said, I what I looked at or when I listened to the interview in full, there was things about that interview that it was just like I felt sorry for her, and then there's parts where it's just like, okay, you did this to yourself, boo boo. Now I want to say this, like, um, Derrick Jaxn is an asshole, and I don't. And here's the thing, like, watching this interview, and you, this might sound crazy, I don't. She didn't come off as bitter. She did come off as heel, but she did not come off as bitter. She took accountability for her for the shit that she was saying, and even when she was talking about Derrick Jaxn, she could have said "fuck that nigga," even though it was like a real like she kept her church poise. I guess if you could say that, the woman of God poise. She kept her woman of God poise, and like it was, I can respect her for that because she could have dragged that man. And I don't think, even though she exposed a lot of truth, it didn't come off as dragged. It didn't come off as bitter. It didn't come off as like I'm getting my lick back and from all the shit you did. She just sat there. She told her story, and it was just like, oh wow. The most you can do, you just sit there and just like, oh wow, this shit really fucking happens. When you get her life story, like there's a lot of times where even in her life story, because she's gone through some shit, especially like in 19 where she was talking about getting sexually assaulted, or the R word, raped, that a lot of people say because you can't really say that word, and that happened to her, and 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 she's never got trauma for that. So in 3 weeks time, she meets Derrick Jaxn and they hit it off and shit. So it's just like, oh wow. So she's never really dealt with that trauma and some shit like that, and and she kept that pent up. And then you put that on top of Derrick Jaxn just cheating on her, being with different women, lying, and you know, seeing the things that she saw and catching her, like he will record himself having sex with these girls, in which, in my opinion, is baffling. It's like, what are you doing recording yourself? Fucking it's like knowing that you got a woman at home. It's like, why would you record yourself having sex with these girls, and do these women know that? That's it. Like the whole time, like you're like Derrick Jaxn, and I've said this before, even this interview. This man is the epitome of narcissism. You can just look at him; he's just like the epitome of narcissism. And then every story she gave that involved him, it proved my point. It was like, wow, this man is very narcissistic, and it threw me off a bit. So, and even then, like there was times where I look at her and it's just like, yeah, you just let this slide. Now, I will admit, love could make you do some crazy shit. Love could make you accept some crazy shit, which is why I think Derrick Jackson lost a real life ride or die. Which is why I'm probably not giving her so much bullshit like like the women will. I'll let the women decide that because, but as far as me as a man, someone you ride down like that, that's something you cherish. You don't let that go. that woman was ride or die for you. Like she was really, she was, and you know, like still was. Like even to this point in this interview, like I said, it wasn't bitter at all. Like even when she was telling the story, it didn't have no type of bitter taste. It's just like, oh, she hasn't really healed. She didn't come through that. It's like when she was telling the stories, it was just like it felt very genuine. Like again, this has happened. Like she's laughing about things. She was like, "Yo, I wasn't really saved at that time," and like she was like, "Yeah, I did those things." Like even when she was just like she was in rotation, and he had other girls, and then she was just like, "Okay," and then she got pregnant, and then she was like, she had 3 abortions, which means this man tried to put a baby in her 3 times, and he probably like paid for the abortions as well. So it's just like, damn, you really like did a number on this girl. And then like majority of the time she's talking about when they was on tour and he was like, "You gonna make the block hot," and it was just like, but that's your wife. It was like, that's your wife. But you could tell like if you really saying that shit to her, like you really are an asshole, in my opinion, and really like narcissism. It's like you making a block hot. It's like what? It's like that's your wife you're talking to. Is if anything, you being married would solidify your advice even more. But I will say this about Derrick Jaxn and my man Clarence, aka Shiny North, done said it. He's niggas. He's the epitome of it's me, I'm niggas. Where it's just like the dudes that he was talking about, the being the fuckboys and all that other stuff, it was him. It was him this whole time. He's like I said, it's me, I'm niggas. And that shit was just like, and you know, going through the story, it's like, oh my god. The whole time he was like pandering to these women, talking about these fuckboys and what these women will and won't do. It's like he's talking about himself, and it's just like wow, and like and you know a lot of things, like even through a lot of things where she was talking about him, like them never finishing marriage counsel because like she unloaded all this trauma on him, and he just couldn't take it because like the way she caught him cheating, like because he wasn't slick about none of his fucking cheating either. So it's just like he really like was fuck. He really did. I don't know if he cared getting caught or not. Cause even then, like when he was just asking, and she told the story about him initiating divorce, and she was like okay, and then he tried to gaslight her, was like calling her manipulative, and he did it on the live. He didn't really use her name, but he was just like if she just respond with a okay, it's just like that's manipulative behavior. I was like, oh my fucking god, and like if you didn't like Derrick Jaxn before, you're not gonna like him now. And I will say this about that. Now, is she fully like? Even though I feel sorry for Danae Jackson, there are things that I feel like a lot of people are going to call her out on, and one of them is being in a relationship when you know is over, and you trying to be what the other girls are, but you're not. In which she explained that, and it's just like I know most people will look at Derrick Jackson as a manipulator, but to me, to me, I was just like, oh, you like this and this and this, so she tried to be the best that she could be for him, and to him to just do that to her, it was like, damn, she's really trying to be a loyal one, in which she in my opinion, she damn near overachieved on, and he just couldn't accept that, or he didn't really like give the love that in my opinion he should have gave. Like Derrick Jackson really looks like a sucker after this. I'd be surprised if he gets booked again. And like I said, the interview wasn't fucking um, bitter at all. It's like she sounded healed. Another thing is, other than ignoring the red flags, it's just like, and the whole cursing her out because she did the even though she tried to like give her a reason for it, the host called her out on it, and shout out to him because like he called her out on a lot of bullshit, like the whole thing with the whole cursing out and all of this stuff, and it was just like, how can you do that after your man say? Because I believe if I'm correct, he initiated the divorce, and she did that prayer and the voodoo shit, and then it got big and viral. So that's saying a lot. Um, she got it. Like I said, even though I do feel sorry for it, but she let that shit happen. And sometimes, and like I understand that you people are not like real strong freedom fighters. You gotta build that up. Like they don't have that gung ho freedom fighter thing. Some people is just like they'll go along to get along. I understand that, but at sometimes you, and it seems like he was doing it, but at the same time she would have stayed with him. She in my opinion, she let that happen. She let that happen, even though she had a list of demands. That man was not going to meet those demands and all that stuff. And honestly, this makes now, even though I'm banging on Derrick Jaxn, I think this makes Derrick Jaxn looks weak as well. And the reason why I say that is because um, she looked weak. Yeah, he looked weak as hell because it's like I said, you got someone that's going to ride for you, and yet you fuck it up. Like, let's be real, you done fucked up the whole fucking time. And a lot of men consist that. Like, to me, even though, like I said, I think she looks gorgeous. You mean to tell me you got a woman that would ride for you, that was submissive, that had that followed the Bible and was able to do all the things there for you, and then you fuck that up? Oh yeah, you're a fucked up individual, no doubt. And like, I don't see no business going through his way unless he got something with like TV One or some shit like that or iHeartRadio. I don't see him staying in this industry or whatever the fuck he is. I don't see him staying in that long enough because he really, really, really fucked over everything. And it took a hit on his brand, his career, and his marriage. So that man's literally got to start from scratch or get a little pointless job. But that's all I really got to say about that. Overall, it was a good shot. Um, I thought, like I said, I thought the host was fair, and I think everybody's going to drag Derrick Jaxn, including some men. And I know some people has already done it. They're about to drag the fuck out of Derrick Jaxn, and I think he deserved it. I really do think he deserved it. And just woo, fellas, if you have a woman that's gonna ride for you and die for you, would you unpack? I mean, would you not? Would you unpack? If you got a woman that's gonna ride, it was like, would you? How would you treat her? Would you treat her like the queen she deserves to be, or would you consider her like other people that you would have fucking fucked and got away with it? Let me know how you feel about that into the comment section. Until then, my name is Askino Fly, and I'm out. Peace.